Local people, important issues. CBS 10 WILM's weekly focus on the Lower Cape Fear region. This is Byline Wilmington with your host, Don Ansell.
Welcome and a very good morning. Well, was the recent court ruling on Titan Cement a game changer for their efforts to build the nation's third largest cement plant in New Hanover County? Joining us for our discussion is coastal activist Mike Giles and environmental scientist Tracy Scrable. Both are with the North Carolina Coastal Federation, who oppose the Titan initiative. And I might just give a program note that the project manager for Titan Cement, Bob Odom, will be our solo guest for that side of the story on Sunday, June 20th. So you won't want to miss that show. And thank you both for joining us this morning. Let's start off with a really brief, non-technical timeline on how the Titan issue unfolded and what brought us to this recent court decision.
So do we have an hour?
Right, and let's do it in just a minute or so.
Very briefly, we heard about Titan in the spring of 2008 with a phone call. They were coming before the Board of County Commissioners the following Tuesday to ask the approval for $4.2 million in incentives, but it started 3 years before that. The Wilmington Industrial Development had been courting Titan.
Better known as the Committee of 100.
Committee of 100.
And their job is to bring business and industry
That's their
to
job.
the region.
They serve an important function. In this case, I think the function sort of got skewed, but the County Commission approved the incentives.
Let's just say that the Committee of 100 doesn't make decisions on environmental issues. They make decisions on how many jobs, and the impact on the economy.
They do, but in this ecological ecosystem of the coast, I think the Committee of 100 and our county commissioners owe it to the citizens to do their due diligence and their homework, not only about jobs and economics, but what it does to human health and our environment, our water quality. That's what drives our economy in Wilmington and the surrounding areas, our water quality and tourism. So
the Committee of 100 brought Titan to the County Commission. They okayed $4.2 million incentives.
Incentive funds.
And it was on its way, went to the permitting process.
It was on its way. It went through a couple of county commission meetings where the citizens, they were outraged. This was done in secret negotiations. Titan's been wanting to come here since the 90s. They were told they couldn't because of the permitting process. But they saw the economic climate was ripe, and they came forth with this was going to be great for everyone. So the incentive.
So you're saying that Titan wanted to come here. Would they have come here with no incentives?
That's a question for Titan, I think. Incentives aren't a game breaker for industrial development. The question is, why do they want the incentives? And in their grant applications,
well, who wouldn't want money?
Who wouldn't want money? With money comes some responsibility. And now I think they would like to not have that responsibility. But the issue with the incentives is it requires the public knowledge and public input through the State Environmental Policy Act. And that's what started the whole citizen outrage, the working we did in the legislature for a year and a half.
So the permitting process, if you're taking, quote, public money, and that's what the court decision was about,
Correct.
Was this indeed public money to build the plant, or if they had not taken the public money, would the permitting process have been different?
Well, there's three triggers for SEPA, the State Environmental Policy Act. One, you have to have a state action, a permit, which they're going to have, several of them. A significant impact on the environment, which we all agree, Titan agrees, that plant is going to have a significant impact, and either public funding or impact to state-owned or state-controlled lands.
Okay, if the public money goes away, those requirements go away?
Those requirements don't go away, but if you don't hit three of the triggers,
it's
the
easier.
SEPA requirement goes
Right.
away.
And
what was required, what Titan wanted also, was to mine about 300 acres of coastal wetlands, which the state controls, and use a barge on the Northeast Cape Fear River. They pulled those off the table when they found out it would trigger SEPA. So Titan's claim that they did not try to avoid SEPA is false.
All right, so the central issue of this latest court decision was SEPA, the State Environmental Policy Act. And Titan saying we're not using public money for any of the reasons that are in that outlined in that, and the Stop Titan folks are saying, oh yes, you are, and then it goes to court, and what happens?
Well, in court, the judge ruled that public money, the incentives not that you pay, you have to pay it up front, it involves public money. And that's what SEPA says, involvement of public money, whether you get it now or later.
And the court said?
Yes.
Yes.
You do need to go through SEPA. The Department of Administration and Diener were incorrect in telling Titan that they did not have to go through the SEPA process. And that's what the judge ruled, is that the trigger was met and that they needed to go through SEPA.
Okay.
Before any permits were issued, and that's critical.
And that's critical.
That
so
is
this is a huge blow to the Titan initiative?
I would say from their perspective, absolutely, because they went to great lengths to avoid this SEPA process, and that gets into a whole other discussion. Why do you care?
Well, Titan maintains they need their air permit first so they can begin the long process of planning and buying equipment. You respond to that?
Well, yes. The whole idea, they follow a very common heavy polluter strategy called divide and conquer, and it's well known in these type of industries. You go after one permit, and in this case, what they would perceive to be the weakest permit, which is the air permit. Once you get that air permit, you can start putting infrastructure in place. You can start building. They could actually build their operation and start mining.
Okay, and this court decision prohibited that?
That is correct.
Okay.
Once they have that first permit, then it sort of biases the later permits. It gets harder and harder for those agencies to say no once they have invested a great deal of money.
Legally, can Titan turn around now and say, we've decided not to take the public money?
They certainly could.
They could. And so that SEPA issue would go away?
Legally, that's probably true, although I think that would send a huge message to the legislature, to the governor, and to our elected officials. If they're willing to do that, what exactly is it that they're hiding from in getting all the environmental agencies to talk to each other? So I would say if they go that direction...
You mean all that, what people haven't been questioning that from the start?
I don't think it's been so obvious to people. It's obvious to us when you remove the barge from your application, when you remove the coastal wetlands from your application. We have emails back and forth between the Titan officials and folks in the government saying, how can we avoid SEPA? It's obvious to us, but I don't think it's been that obvious to the general public.
Just a reminder, once again, we're going to take a break, but first, the project manager for Titan Cement, Bob Odom, will be our solo guest on our show of June 20th, so we'll get the other side of the story on that. We'll come back and talk more about this issue. Will Titan appeal the court decision? We'll talk about that next.